Hello, I am performer, choreographer Francesca Harper, and you're watching The Artists Forum.
Welcome to the Artist Forum. I'm your host, Elliot Torres. My guest today is an acclaimed choreographer and Broadway performer. She's graced the stage of shows such as Fosse, The Producers, and The Color Purple. I'm pleased to be joined today with Francesca Harper. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much. Happy to be here.
I'm very excited to have you here. I had the opportunity earlier this summer to see your show, The Look of Feeling, and very intense, and I very much enjoyed it. Can you please tell viewers about the show and what inspired you to create it?
Oh, sure. Well, I created The Look of Feeling after my mother passed. About 4 years ago, I was asked to teach at the Susan Batson studio when she passed. And Susan Batson is an amazing acting coach, and she believed in me. I had done some work with her on other productions when I was learning Shug in The Color Purple and with Sweet Charity and some roles that I was learning. So I knew she was an amazing coach. And she said, she hired me as a teacher after my mom passed and said, you know, one of the best ways to work through grief is to create. And I thought, oh my gosh. So I started working on the piece with her. And it was so intense, I couldn't manage on being consistent, so I was kind of in and out for about a year and a half, you know, kind of showing up and then disappearing for a while, because it was so, you know, the grief, I think I still hadn't quite healed.
Okay.
And then, so I think it was maybe about a year ago that I said, okay, this is time to really create this and get this up on its feet, you know?
Right.
So I decided, I got serious about it, and it was interesting. Once I committed to performing the piece, it started becoming, you know, it started giving me strength. So it was funny how it shifted from me kind of being fearful and letting the grief kind of take over to me really being inspired and it giving me power and strength, you know, which is what I had hoped it would do, my objective in the first place,
right.
You know? So yeah, it was developing it with Susan, and then we I think we opened in March of this past year, and we had a couple of runs, and it's been a transformative experience.
Oh, it was definitely an amazing experience just to watch it. I mean,
Really?
just very emotional and intense. And I have to mention your mother was Denise Jefferson, who was the director of Alvin Ailey for 25 years.
Yeah.
So how did she influence you into becoming a dancer?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. She was head of the school. She's the director of the Ailey School, and she was very much, teaching was her passion. And so I grew up around there and just fell in love. I was growing up in the studio when the dancers were dancing, and I learned so much from watching the process of artists growing and improving and challenging themselves and, you know, rising to the occasion, and it was just an amazing process. So I would watch her classes and I'd watch other people's classes, then I started dancing myself, and I was always around Alvin Ailey, the school, and but I also had a passion for ballet, which is interesting. I talk about that in the show. There's actually a tape that she talks about, you know, she had started ballet when she was young, but because of the realistic race issues of the time, it kind of discouraged her from it. And I think that her story always influenced me in that way. So I had this like desire and will to become a ballet dancer. So I was at Alvin Ailey kind of growing up around, but I was studying more kind of predominantly ballet at the time because of my mother's story. And I was determined to kind of pave my way and trailblaze this way as a ballet dancer, because there weren't so many you even see nowadays in the major ballet companies.
Right.
There just aren't that many minorities or African American ballet dancers. So, but what was so great about Ailey was the spirit there. Alvin really choreographed pieces for kind of embedded in the African American spirit. So it was a really great place for me to grow up in terms of community and being around my, around my community. But it was really great also growing up in New York, because I went to the School of American Ballet and the Joffrey Ballet School, and kind of it was interesting to be a minority in those places and then be, a majority at the Alvin Ailey School.
Right.
So I just love New York for that. You just have such a kind of variety of experiences.
And also, what about in terms of your performances? When you're performing in that specific show, The Look of Feeling, as I mentioned, very intense. So what goes through your mind when you're in the middle of a performance like that, through a dancer's mind, when, and also that show, you're doing a combination of acting and dancing.
That's right. Yeah, well, what goes through my mind? Oh, I mean, it always changes, I think also that's the great thing about having performed for so many years, is that I used to kind of focus and kind of control, or wanting to know that there was a certain product or produce a certain outcome. And now I don't even know what I'm going to get from minute to minute emotionally. It's also, since I created the piece, I have a structure, I have the text, and I have certain things that are kind of landing pads, but then some things are also subject to improvisation in the moment, and the feeling, the look of the feeling that I'm getting and experiencing. So there's a little bit of a variety and a little kind of room for things to shift and change. What am I thinking about? I'm thinking about being authentic to the character, which is my mom's life, and really making sure that the root of what I'm saying is true to the way I knew she lived her life.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Well, I think you definitely accomplished that.
Oh, thank
from seeing
you
the
so
performance,
much.
you definitely did. How do you feel dance has changed from when you first started to basically today? Has it changed in any way, or what are the differences that you've seen in the young people coming up, or if any?
Oh, absolutely. No, it's been really amazing to experience the evolution in dance. I grew up at a time, I think, kind of at the end of the 70s, and I felt growing up and seeing the dancers, there was a real there were social statements that they were saying. Civil rights movement, feminist movement, the gay movement. So there were a lot of pieces that were very much about provoking thought and awareness and raising awareness for people. I think now there's a real, I think it's shifted with the internet and with,
social media.
Social media, exactly. And there seems to be, it's an interesting, beautiful, kind of subtle shift. A lot of people, I worked with William Forsythe in Frankfurt, in the Frankfurt Ballet, and he introduced a lot of improvisation techniques as well. So it was really interesting to be at the forefront of a ballet company, but also a ballet company that was pushing the boundaries and becoming a contemporary medium. Like contemporary work now is very, very prominent, and it takes classical forms and deconstructs them. So that's kind of also what I use when I dance, this kind of contemporary form that also has a lot of everyday movements,
Right.
So there is like almost a theater element to what I do now. And I'm also really a love of Pina Bausch, who is a choreographer, did a lot of dance theater work. So it's been interesting to see it shift. There's also, now I'm finding a lot of personal investment in the work. More collaborative in the process. I remember growing up and the choreographer would tell me exactly what the steps were that I needed to do.
Right.
And now I worked for a long time with William Forsythe and collaborated. Well, what do you think, Fran? Here's my idea. How would you interpret this? So it was wonderful. I'd experienced these pieces that I'd be told kind of what the choreography was, and then also to create my own or to improvise with his ideas, so that there's a real natural kind of organic and personal element to the dance. And I think that's really the primary way that it shifted, is into that kind of improvisatory feeling, you know?
Do you think that dance has benefited from, let's say, social media and the internet, or do you think it's basically those things have hurt it in any way?
Oh, no, I don't know. I'm just a little bit of, I call myself a technophile.
Okay.
And I think in my school, I was one of the students who, like, I think 3 of us were allowed to study computer programming, and I was one of them in 6th grade.
Right.
You know, so I mean, for me, I think it's interesting, also because I had such a close family relationship, so it wasn't like computers were taking up so much time that I wasn't having a life.
Okay.
You know, I think sometimes I feel this kind of addictive quality happening now, and you know, hard for people to hold a conversation without texting, you know. So
or a lot of times that's how they do have conversations.
Right, exactly. That's right. That's right. That's hard as the person's not there, but it's just different. It's not that it's hard. It's just is what it is.
Exactly.
I do think it's interesting, like social media for me in terms of choreography. I've been able to kind of send phrases or send works online to dancers, and they learn the choreography, and we come in the studio and they already know it. So it kind of expedites that whole you know, process of having to teach the combination. I do sense, like, as a teacher with social media, and there's, because of this, you know, I think before we had it, there was something to the personalization of a conversation, like you and I are talking now, eye to eye. And it's interesting that I found that the training, because of this, there's a lot more insecurity in terms of holding the space and holding someone's attention or feeling deserving of having someone's attention. So I've had to do a lot of, you know, encouraging with my students about, okay, you know, and kind of self-affirmations, or, you know, supporting them in that way. That's been interesting, because I think there's also this when you can be distracted easy or escape all the time, you know, it's hard for you to be consistent and hold the space emotionally, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
So that's been interesting, you know, but so, you know, I feel this generation is so smart and so interesting, and find that young people are so kind of fully realized in a lot of ways. You know, there's a lot of information about a lot of different things, which is really exciting to see that evolution in that way.
Well, and you know, as I mentioned, after seeing your show, you basically bring the visual and dance, so in the combination of the two in such a great way. It's very theatrical, and I know that you have a television and film background as well. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Let's see. I mean, I got I did the Producers movie musical with Susan Stroman. I worked with Mike Figgis, who did Leaving Las Vegas. I did Boardwalk Empire. I've done a couple of episodes of Boardwalk Empire. And what's really funny, actually, after Look of Feeling, it was funny. After one of the performances, I had someone come and ask me if I wanted to develop a television series based on the work. Isn't that funny?
That's funny.
So it's really funny. I didn't think it could
translate
happen.
very well.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I didn't think so, but you know, it's also about kind of education, and you know, and what do we leave, and legacy, and you know, what do you leave behind, and paying it forward, I think, which are the important themes, human themes, that are involved in the work. So it's interesting. I, you know, was approached by this person, and then somehow a couple of things happened that I was asked to develop it and develop, like, the first season of episodes. So so that's kind of the next phase. I've never done it before.
I look forward to that.
Thank you. I'm working with some people now to develop it. It's been really lovely developing these characters and that are also kind of based on people I knew. You know, you can't help it, but when you're writing, it's so interesting.
That's the best way it happens.
Do you feel that way?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, what's the difference that you notice from working with your craft in that medium, in TV or film, as opposed to live on stage?
Well, I think the difference is the intensity of capturing something with TV and film the stakes are very high, right, in terms of capturing one thing, and also you have to kind of repeat what you did so they can get, right,
Right.
you in the same place and make sure that they have continuity when they edit. And with theater, there's so much more kind of freedom in the moment for you to play and experiment. I mean, I grew up in the theater, so it's really a place
It's
I
home.
feel, really comfortable. I find also with TV and film, it was really hard for me doing film work the first time, and like just thinking about the eye line and being clear about,
Right.
okay, you're looking here and you're talking to that person in the eye line, and you can't really move your body, as much, or you can, but you have to be, it's limited.
Right.
And with theater, it's, there's so much more room for the physicality on stage, and that's been interesting. And also the subtleties and nuances that a camera can catch. Also how you have to be more introspective in ways,
Right.
But in theater, you have to really make sure that it's sending and people hear you, and it's
A lot more elements to it.
Yeah, it's like more of this projection as opposed to people kind of coming into your experience.
And you were also, I understand you were also a consultant on the film Black Swan.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that? I love that film. That was a
Sure.
great
You
movie.
did.
Yeah,
It was fun.
Definitely enjoyed it.
Yeah, Darren Aronofsky is a good friend of mine, and he had talked about this years ago about doing the film, and asked me if I could help him. So I basically talked with him and brought him around to the dance studios and started talking to him about my experience in the ballet world, and my real experience was just what he wanted to know, as you can see in the film, like what was your real, true experience, And it was really great kind of working. That was the way I worked kind of as a consultant for him, to give him information about my real experience, and yeah.
Well, it definitely showed. I mean,
Oh, very nice.
Definitely showed in that film.
Yeah.
So now we're going to take a look. I'll let you introduce the clip,
Oh,
but we're
okay.
going to take a look at you performing your dance.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, I think this is a clip of The Look of Feeling. It's right. My mother always talked about wanting to be a showgirl in Paris. So this clip you'll see is almost her dreaming about herself on a stage, a la Josephine Baker, in the middle of her dream,
Nice.
Yeah.
Ronald became a pediatrician, and his two brothers judges. His sister, an elementary school teacher with 3 master's degrees. I tell you, sometimes the mental weight of my family's history was so intense. All I wanted was to be a showgirl in Paris. Oh, bonjour. Je m'appelle Denise. Je m'appelle Denise. Oh, God, okay. Okay. Les gants. Je présente mes gants rouges. Mes gants masculins, féminins. Oh, fuck it. À gauche. À droite. À droite. Indiquant des lacs de mer, là-bas sur le ciel clair, il existe un cité, un séjour enchanté. Et sur
So that clip is an excellent example of your versatility with your singing, your acting. What was it? What was that like in terms of that particular scene?
Oh, let's see. It was really lovely. It's always so wonderful to kind of fantasize about your dream, you know?
Right.
So I think that was the lovely thing. It would kind of letting the music transport me to somewhere else and to capture the mood of France and Paris. You know, my mother also got her master's in French. So it was also kind of the mood, or we grew up with that
Right.
style in the house, you know? Yeah.
Great
So,
fashion sense.
yeah, right,
Very
exactly.
good.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
remember
That
the clothes
chic
from the show,
elegance,
yes.
right? Yo, thank you, thank you. Yeah, no, it was great. The designer for that is this guy, Elias Carolla. And he and I worked on a project for Louis Vuitton for Fashion Week
Oh, wow.
last year, yeah, and we won this Innovation and Technology Award, which was this.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
That's awesome.
So I really loved working with him. I just choreographed a new piece that he did costumes for, and he's just a really dear friend and really talented.
Well, you're very talented, and you
you.
mentioned that you're a teacher, and I'm sure that there are aspiring dancers out there who are watching this and who would love to learn from you. So if you could tell me in terms of, so they'll get the information where you teach, and also what you look for in students who are interested in becoming dancers.
Oh, that's a wonderful question. Let's see. I teach at New York University. I'm an adjunct professor there. I teach at Alvin Ailey for the Fordham BFA program as well. And I also choreograph. I'm getting ready to choreograph there 2 projects this year, which is exciting. And I also teach at the Susan Batson Studio, the place that produced my show.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. I teach movement for actors there.
All right.
Which is really fun. That's been kind of a transformative experience for me. You know, I always learn a lot from my students. It's such a kind of an exchange, you know.
Because you get inspired by them.
Yeah, absolutely. And their
Right.
stories and their experiences, you know. My favorite, I think, what I look for in a student is openness.
Okay.
You know, and also it's hard to find that balance between, you know, having an ego or a healthy sense of yourself and being totally open. So it's an interesting place. You know, I look for someone who has a strong foundation or sense of themselves, but is really open to learning in the moment and changing and shifting and growing and diving into the unknown, you
Right.
know, which is a wonderful thing that you can do in the arts. But sometimes it's interesting when students get bogged down in the technical side of things or the technicalities, they can start to kind of lock down emotionally.
Okay.
So
Right.
that for me
That
is
makes
also
sense.
keeping that sense of play or keeping that sense of openness and
Fluidity.
shifting. Fluidity, exactly. That things are constantly changing,
Right.
you know? Yeah, and you
Nice.
can go with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are your goals, and what would you say you need to achieve them?
Oh my goodness. Okay, my goals. Well, this television project is the latest one. As my shoulders rise up to my ears. Yeah, that's really an interesting
exciting.
one. It's really exciting. You know, I don't know what will come to, you know, pass of it, but that's really good. Also to learn more as an actress. There might be a play that I've been asked to do. I'm still waiting to see how that goes, and continuing to develop dances. That's just my passion. I'm also going to be creating a new premiere for at the Metropolitan Museum of Art
Oh,
on
nice.
March 24th, and it's a collaboration with the composer John Adams
Okay.
and the Ataka String Quartet. I've worked with them before. They're in residency at the Met, and they asked me if I would collaborate on that project. So I'm so excited. John Adams is like one of my dream composers. I mean, one of the best composers, modern composers out there. So it's a big kind of project for me.
Big
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah, so it's been great. I started choreographing in September, and I'm, you know, doing different sections of the piece. So it's nice to have my time, you know, with
Right.
such a big project. It's not something I would kind of want to rush at the last minute, you know?
Yeah.
So that's been really fun, is to really think about that. And the last piece I think I did 3 small pieces or three pieces. And it's an all, it just happens to be that's like it's an all female cast. and very much kind of inspired by Martha Graham's Chronicle, which was and Steps in the Street, choreographed by Martha Graham. And really, it started because I realized in my classes one week, a lot of women, especially I noticed, were talking about how much they disliked their bodies.
Oh, okay.
You know,
which
and
is
how
a common issue now that it's always in the media in terms of
that's right.
body issues and
And
image.
self-image,
Right.
absolutely. And I just thought, my God, I thought it's 2014. Are we really still doing this
Right.
to ourselves? I said, so let's really tackle this and get beyond this so we can, you know, start to enjoy our lives, you know, and our bodies and our being so I wrote a series of questions, and I started with the cast of ladies. I posed the questions, and they started, this is the collaborative process that I was talking about. They started by developing their own material in responses to the questions.
Oh, nice.
So they started with these gestures, very small phrase, and then I would take the phrase and kind of expand it and develop the piece with the music. So it's actually, the gestural movement is all about how they feel about their bodies and what they feel disempowers them and what empowers them, and how we can empower others through the movement.
That sounds
Yeah,
inspiring.
it's exciting.
I'm
Yeah,
sure
yeah,
it's
yeah.
very exciting. So it
Yeah.
sounds like you just have a lot of exciting projects coming along.
Yeah.
And also, you're going to run the Look of Feeling again, correct?
Yes, yes. Oh, thank you for remembering. Yes, we're going to be produced at Steps on Broadway, Steps Beyond, November 14th and 16th. And I'm really excited about that. I'm currently working in a narrator to the project, which is very interesting to kind of share the stage with someone.
Okay.
So I'm not going to say who yet.
Right.
You'll have to come and see
Come and
on
see
the
it again,
14th and 16th. But it should be up on their website, which it's Steps on Broadway, or stepsonbroadway.com or stepsnyc.com. I'm not sure. If you Google Steps on Broadway, you'll be able to access the link. And also my website.
And your
which
website,
is,
right.
francescaharper.com.
All right, wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you,
Thank you.
for
This
being
has
here
been
today. It was a
great.
pleasure, meeting you and speaking to you after seeing your shows. Like I said, very exciting to watch.
Thank you.
If you'd like to learn more about Francesca Harper, please visit her website at francescaharper.com. I'm Elliot Torres, and we'll see you next time on The Artist Forum.